And hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Growth Academy. Today, with us, we have David, co founder and CEO at Omniscient Digital. Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking part in our series. David, can you tell us more about yourself, about your career, and why did you start doing what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I am co-founder and CEO of Omniscient Digital. We've been building this for about the last 4 years. We're an organic growth agency for ambitious B2B software companies. Before this, I was head of growth at a tech startup called People AI. And before that, I was a growth product manager at HubSpot, where I spent about 6 years on both the marketing side and the product management side. And it all started off. My career started off with content and SEO, and over time, I started getting more curious about analytics and product management and more of the like technical side of growth rather than just the marketing go to market side. So I naturally ended up taking on roles like that, and then over time through the expertise and speaking that I've done over time, people started reaching out, asking for help with their growth initiatives. And it kind of narrowed in on content and SEO being growth levers that a lot of companies don't know how to utilize correctly. And so that's how myself, my co-founders, Alex and Ali, ended up focusing on that channel to help more B2B SaaS companies build out their organic growth engine.
Okay, you just mentioned something that's interesting to me. You said that companies don't know how to utilize SEO and content marketing. Can you explain us some more? How is that? How they don't do it, and how they should actually do it?
Yeah, I think the thing I see a lot of people doing is they're still trying to run old playbooks. I still get people saying they want to do what HubSpot did, but HubSpot did that almost 20 years ago. So it's an old playbook everyone's trying to run, and it doesn't apply to a lot of companies nowadays. And so what we typically help our clients figure out is what's your differentiator and how you're going to go to market with content and SEO. For some people, it might mean producing a lot of top of funnel content to get more traffic in because they feel good about retargeting and their paid campaigns. For most clients, it's actually figuring out what are the key topics that they need to be known for, what's their brand point of view that they want to get out into the market, and what ultimately their prospects and customers want to hear from them to build trust and credibility so that they decide to work with them. But that's a much more nuanced approach to content strategy that doesn't fit well into a one liner on LinkedIn or Twitter. And so not a lot of people talk about it. It's actually just focusing on the basics rather than trying to get too fancy with anything. And the way we help clients is we report on traffic, that's fine, but we also report on conversions, conversion rate. If they're comfortable with getting us into their systems, we can report on pipeline and revenue generated as well. And so we get as close to the money as possible when we're reporting on the impact of our work with them.
Yeah, and when you start working with a company, what metrics do you track to measure the success of your work actually?
Yeah, so we have to do a lot of education with our clients because some of them want to measure things like social shares or bounce rate or time on page, which are really important. But the business critical metrics are things like leads and MQLs and SQLs and pipeline and revenue. So we tell them that the the metrics that they need to measure and report to leadership on are really basic. It's how much traffic is your blog or your website getting? How many people are converting into leads? How many of those are qualified leads? And how much pipeline and revenue are you generating? And then the way we frame it is traffic is a lagging indicator to other leading indicators. And so if we see that there's a change in traffic trends, then we tell them now is when you dig into clicks, impressions, time on page, and bounce rate and things like that. But you don't start with those metrics. Like you need to see the big picture and the business impact, and if there's anything that you need to dig into, instead of starting with the very specific leading indicator metrics. Because if people only look at bounce rate and focused on optimizing for bounce rate, they might be losing the big picture of, hey, actually, but are people converting? Like maybe they're bouncing because they're going to like a subdomain and they're converting, and your website doesn't have cross-domain tracking or something like that, which is like, you don't understand it unless if you're looking at the big picture.
Yeah, and since some of those metrics, as you already mentioned, like they bouncing because going to the subdomain and everything, there are like some things that you can't really track. You need to guess and like have some previous experience. So how do you effectively then measure the ROI you're providing to your client?
Yeah. So the way I should probably talk about this, the way that we look at attribution is extremely simple because we don't think it's worth it to spend time doing multi-touch attribution or time decay attribution or anything like that. Just what was the thing that got people to convert? How many people converted from there? And so we just use last touch, which is out of the box in Google Analytics. And then when we work with the client to report on the ROI of our efforts together, we'll actually ask them like, how much pipeline have you generated? How many deals closed did you get? Like, can you give us a ballpark of like how much pipeline or anything like that is? Because they probably wouldn't want to share revenue. And then we can actually say like, you're paying us this much per month. Here's how much we've generated for you in pipeline over the course of that same time. And so they actually get $1 ROI. Or they can actually see how much they pay us and then how many leads they got. And they can back it up into a cost per lead model, which, as you know, with organic programs, like as the traffic compounds and they're getting more leads, that compounds, but they're paying us the same amount, that actually becomes a lot better for them.
Okay, and when you start working with a new company, how does that look? How do you approach creating a strategy for them?
Yeah, there's a lot of that goes into it, but the key things that we focus on are how do they differentiate from competitors, and what are the key brand points of view or messages that they have that differentiates them or gives people a reason to trust them more than they would trust a competitor. Nowadays, I'm sure a lot of people listening know this, is software is a bit commoditized. Most products can do almost the same exact thing. Maybe the UI is different, but the features are pretty much the same. And so it's hard to differentiate on that front. Where you differentiate is a go to market, what your positioning is, what your messaging is, who you're targeting, and being very clear about that. And then the other part is just having real industry experience to be able to speak to the nuances of what's going on in industry and why you're worth trusting. And so this comes in a form of maybe company leadership posting more on LinkedIn about industry trends and what they're seeing in the market. You see companies like Vendor and Jasper doing this really well. And those were two clients that we've worked with previously. And the reason that's important is if you read the top 5 blog posts for a given search query, they all say almost the same thing. And so if there's that one blog post that presents a new idea or a new way of looking at things, that's going to catch people's attention and make them wonder like, what does this company know that I don't, that their competitors also don't know? Because everyone's saying the same thing, but this one company is presenting this kind of contrarian way to think about it that isn't just contrarian to be contrarian, but actually makes a lot of sense. Or they might be saying the thing that people don't want to talk about out loud. And that's when you know it's like, okay, we need to pay more attention to this company. Like, I want to know what they're building.
Yeah, and you're talking about differentiation and people repeating the same things. Companies becoming repetitive. Does it make a difference when you create a strategy for a new company, a new SaaS trying to go into the market, or when you make a strategy for an established company?
Yeah, it matters even more for those companies, right? We spoke to a company that they were saying we want to compete with Zendesk and Intercom and HubSpot. Like they were a live chat tool and they were a startup. And we're like, good luck. Unless if you have a lot of money or you have something new to say, you're not going to be able to get any attention because why would someone believe that you are worth working with when there are plenty of proven options out there already? And so the way to stand out is you have to say something that like Intercom or Zendesk and HubSpot are doing differently, or they're doing something wrong that you have a better solution. One example of this is a company called Koala. They're getkoala.com. Not an investor or anything. I use them personally, but their platform is essentially like an ABM platform. But compared to other companies like sixth sense where you don't really know what these intent signals are in their product. With Koala, you can set that up on your own, like so there isn't a black box. And so they're approaching ABM in a different way from these incumbent ABM platforms in a way where if you start using a product, you'll think like, oh my God, this is cheaper and I like the way it works better than if I were to use Sixth Sense. And so that's the way that they're kind of differentiating and being able to create some noise. Like I've told other people, I had someone tell me about it. I was amazed. So I told many other people about it. And I had many other people saying, they don't want to use Sixth Sense anymore. And so I'm like, you should check out Koala. And so it's even I myself am feeling how I'm being a part of their word of mouth engine because of like what they have to say or what their product is doing that's different from the current incumbents in the space.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're working with a company, when you're starting working with a new SaaS with a new company, what's like what channels are you focusing on the most? I mean, definitely it's content and SEO, but what are your like your way of doing things? What are your specific strategies specific to you?
So the thing that I find interesting is a lot of people say they do strategy, but they really only do tactics. Strategy in my mind is actually pretty simple. And if you think of it very simply, a lot of the strategies for our clients are all the same. It's in the execution that's different. And so it's really about like tailoring the execution to match to align with their go-to-market. Because um, when by the time prospects come to us, they've already decided they want to do content and SEO. So that's already like the strategic decision is organic is going to be their go to market, part of the go to market motion. What we're there to figure out is what does a successful content strategy look like? And that's where it comes down to what are the brand points of view? What are they trying to say? How much content do they need to produce and how quickly based on the budget that they have? And like how do we make sure that their positioning is infused in all of that? I think when people start talking about like fancy strategies, they're actually talking about tactics around I post X number of times on LinkedIn and I do paid ads and all these things. We don't even play in that realm because a lot of those things are, in my mind, marginally beneficial. Like we do recommend posting a LinkedIn. It shouldn't be the primary distribution channel for content because if what we're building for them is working, organic is going to be that like search SEO is going to be that distribution channel for the content. And so I don't have anything special to say about strategy, to be honest. Like I think some of those boring strategies are the most effective ones, but people get bored by that. And so they don't stick to it and they don't see the results. Whereas like you shouldn't be changing your strategy every couple of months, right? Like it should be a defined strategy that you have a strong hypothesis behind. So you don't need to worry about what strategies other people are doing if you have thought out your strategy well enough.
And since you mentioned that it's not good to change strategies that often and usually stick to the ones that work, are there any emerging trends in the world of content marketing and I mean SaaS growth? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, a big one that I think everyone's talking about is how AI fits in. We're figuring that out still. The technology's gotten a lot better. Like as of this recording, OpenAI just had their developer day last week, and for people trying to build out marketing channels, like the content production is just the tip of the iceberg. For a lot of this, people are viewing it in a very superficial way as a way to write more words, which is one way. But to date, I have not successfully been able to just put in a keyword and get 2,000 words and want to publish that. Like it requires a significant amount of editing, a significant amount of fact checking, a significant amount of not just copy editing, but structural editing to a point where I should have just written it from scratch, or our writers should have just written it from scratch. So we're constantly testing these out to make sure that we're aware of the capabilities. Where it helps a ton is actually doing user research and like customer research in ways that you have to be a little bit more clever about it. Like it's not just like tell me X. It's actually having to write out some decent prompts and training the models. But I think the marketing teams that can figure that out are and not just teams, but even individuals who can figure it out and then teach their team how to do it, that's going to be what gives SaaS, like startup marketing teams, the edge, because they're going to be able to move much quicker with fewer resources. And right now in the current economic state, everyone's trying to quote do more with less, but people haven't really figured out, I think, how to do that with AI beyond like content generation, which is helpful, but I don't think that's the only thing. Like if we're talking about using AI for strategy, it can be a thought partner to help you figure out like what your best approach should be, um, in a way where it's much more in depth than tell me a content strategy, right? You're gonna have to put a lot more inputs into it, but that's something that's top of mind for me right now.
And is there any specific use case of AI or ChatGPT and that actually helped you in your work or anything else?
Yeah, an interesting use case I learned about recently is another agency CEO. I was like taught a workshop that I went to recently, and he shared how his team was using these AI tools. And one example is, let's say you're building a product for a engineer who works with APIs. And so the way you might prompt the AI is, you are uh, a software developer who's like 32 years old, lives in San Francisco. You have these hobbies. You enjoy working with APIs and you like tinkering on the side on the weekends. And you create this persona, which ideally is the persona you want to sell to an interview. You tell the AI tool like what their persona is going to be, and then you start asking them questions like, okay, let's say you're trying to learn how to use an API. What would you do? And they answer as that persona. And so while people might be spending time trying to schedule interviews with the customers and all of that, one of the things they could do is, hey, let's look at all the people, like all the customers we already know who are our target persona, and create like AI personas for them. Like you're not going to give them the name, of course, but like give them the attributes and everything, so that instead of reaching out to like Alexa, who's one of our customers, like I can just create like Alexa AI, and like
Yeah.
here's like, if Alexa doesn't have time to talk to me, like I pretty much know how Alexa will respond based on the interviews I've already done with you, and I can like feed that to the model, and like I can say like, okay, hey, what do you think of this idea? Like, what if we built this feature? What would you want to see? I'm talking about it from like building a product now, but same thing for marketing. Like, what kind of questions are you trying to answer when you're trying to understand how to use APIs? And then that can give you some ideas of, okay, here's the type of content I should write about for using our company APIs or something.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting and something we could actually implement in the future. So thanks for sharing it. And for the, I mean, we have like two more questions, and we want to leave our community with a bits of your knowledge, a few more bits. Can you tell us what has been the most valuable lesson in your career regarding SaaS growth?
I'll give two. One is, don't pay too much attention to competitors or what you think you should be doing. Form your own hypothesis on what growth looks like and why you believe that to be true, and then test it. Like that's just basic experimentation. The other is, don't wait for permission, which is more like career advice, where I had this situation multiple times when I was at HubSpot where I strongly believed we should do these certain projects, but like my manager or VP would say like, no, we want you to focus on this. And what I just told him is, I'm going to do it anyway. I'll still do my main job that you want me to do, but I really believe in this, and like I'll do it and I'll report back on how it's going. And so I didn't wait for permission. Like even if someone said no and I believed in it, I would just go for it. And I think that's where a lot of career growth happens, where you're seeing opportunities that even some of the smartest people don't see, and you just pursue it and prove it out. And that can ultimately dictate the direction that your career goes, whether it's in growth or like product or management or whatever. It's taking that extra step to like trust your gut when you see an opportunity, rather than don't question yourself, like go for it. The worst case that happens is it doesn't work and you learn something, right?
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, David, for taking part in our interview, and I hope everyone learned something as I already did. So thank you again, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciated this, and hope everyone got something out of it.